Oo. Simulan na natin, ha? Good afternoon. Oh, dito daw. Harap kayo, harap kayo. Oo. Carol, dito ka na. Okay, okay. Okay, konting formalities lang ngayon para kasi ano to the ArtSpeak is a regular public program of Ateneo Art Gallery. This is extra special because it features this year's, or was it last year? Last year's Tanglaw ng Lahi awardee. It's part of Ateneo de Manila University's Traditional Awards. Everybody knows our friend Jose Tence Ruiz, or Terence Bogie Ruiz, no? So yung title and write-up galing sa kanya to. So I'm sure kung pumunta kayo after reading this, you know more or less what to expect. I don't know. But the title is Defying Gravity for Non-Billionaires. So it's a very interesting title, and the setup will be meron siyang presentation and then conversation. And we encourage everybody to join the conversation later. No? So without further ado, Bogie Ruiz.
We will distribute it later. That's the equivalent of about, magkano na ba, less than a jeepney ride. But, you know, it's still worth your, please, lumapit kayo. Hindi ako bumubuga ng laway. Kung yun ang kinatatakutan nyo, siguro nangyari sa inyo sa college yun. May mic dito sa harapan, nakukuha lahat ng mic. Alright. Because I have, unfortunately or fortunately, invited so many esteemed guests, I feel compelled to entertain you a bit with a slide presentation because obviously my ugly face will not suffice for the entire afternoon. After which I will then trap you into an exchange of opinions. Him I don't need to trap, but the rest of you, you know, who are not so nimble at finding little jokes in everything that happens to us, I will try to engage you. We will arrange this in like an Alcoholics Anonymous setup. Walang masyadong hierarchy. And we'll talk about things that might render all of us useless, like AI and global capitalism, and you know who gets to really demarcate on water and things like that. Who really gets to write divisions on water? 9 dash, yes, 9 dash line. Ika nga ng mga ISIS, the 9 dash line. But in the meantime, we will begin first with something which I am actually very happy to display. I will tell you a little narrative about B-Boy Delotavo. It's not about me. I actually hate to talk about myself. But we will talk about B-Boy Delotavo, what I have, for your initial warm-up entertainment, so that you get into the mood of flinging criticism at me. I will have a show about B-Boy Delotavo. Why am I proud of this? Because after more than 45 years, B-Boy Delotavo went back to Iloilo and sabi ng mga Ilonggo, ay, taga rito pala yan. Wow, okay pala yan ah. Imagine. But we were happy enough to bring back one of my best friends for the last 47 years to his hometown And then after 2 weeks, they started to make graffiti about him. Sabi ko, we must have done something right. No, so this is an act of contextualizing what we do. Because sabi ko, at the end of the day, those of us who are on the precipice, and I dare say this because some of us still entertain the Van Goghian myth na, puta pare, pag namatay ako, malalaman nyo, sikat pala ako, marunong pala ako. Most of us are on the precipice of oblivion. Pag namatay ka, sorry, pag wala ka maraming post, sino nga pala yun? My favorite question, my favorite quiz muna, doon sa mga hindi tatanggap ng 500, kayo, wag ito, alam niyo, madaya itong mga ito, kasabay nila sa buhay eh. Sino ang pinakasikat na sculptor na walang nakakakilala? May 3 siyang sculpture sa Makati, nasa Makati Avenue, Ayala Avenue, at saka Paseo de Rojas Triangle. Ang pangalan ng statwa, Gabriela Silang. Yung pangalawa ay Pio del Pilar. At yung ikatlo ay Sultan Kudarat. Sinong sculptor na gumawa nun? Sige nga, kung kayo nagbayad ng malaking no, wag matatanda. Older people who are as old as ay, daya. I thought you were not talk. Ikaw talaga. Okay, he's right. Does anybody know who Jose Mendoza is? Putang ina, patay na. Tagal sumagot. Huli na kayo. See, that's my point. That's my point. Jose Mendoza, with all apologies to those appointed, Jose Mendoza doesn't give a shit about becoming national artist, but nobody knows him, really. He doesn't really care. He toils in obscurity and total happiness. He is actually kind of alipin ni Sari Ortiga. I mean, he works with Sari on a constant residency in Batino, in Calamba. And he's happy. What is he, 87, 88? Yeah, you cannot claim to be older than Jose Mendoza, most of the people here. So he holds the distinction of being very active, still puts pomada, and doesn't give a shit. And he can fill up the whole crucible booth at the art fair with like 45 metal sculptures. You know, ganon ang prolificness ni Jose. But that's my point. We are all on the cusp also always of obscurity. Or as the Tom Cruise movie would say, oblivion, no? Olvido. And yeah, it would also be good to always see things in context, because I think the context is the thing that keeps us bobbing to the surface, for us not to be drowned in the Marianas Trench of history, because it's damn deep and we're all, you know. So, without Antipas Delotavo, because I think somebody said to me, sino nga ba gumawa nung itak sa puso ni Mang Juan? Ano nga ba pangalan nun? All right, now here's your chance to hear all about Antipas Delotavo. By the way, he is here, no? Antipas Delotavo, could you please stand up? Si B-Boy, Antipas B-Boy Delotavo. What? I just say next. I just say next. You're not AI yet. Enjoy that somebody tells you to do something. Man, let's not automate everything. Please. Can you imagine if somebody automated your bidet? Man, di ba nakakatakot na. Nandun na tayo eh. Nakaranas ka na. Nandun na tayo eh. There are still 2 seats dito. Honestly, 500 rupiah. Bibigyan ko kayo kung umupo kayo malapit. Ay, nervyusin. Ayun pa, oh. You can tell your grandparents, katabi ko yung national artist sa isang lecture, please take advantage. You will never get this chance. It's very hard to pin down. It's very hard to pin down. Take advantage. Kahit ayaw siyang papasukin ng sikyo, pagsamantalahan nyo. Oh. Like I said, we should have a 5x7 laminated national ID for national artists to show to all the security guards or all the avant-gardes. I always say, 1/3 of the population is guarding the other 1/3 from the other 1/3. 1/3 of them are security guards. Go to Makati, look every 3 meters. If you don't see one, come to me, I'll give you 1,000 rupiah. All right, so Antipas Delotavo, the story of Antipas. Antipas, of course, is a painter. Antipas he belongs to what we call social realism. He belongs to a place where we thought, with apologies to some of our friends, where we thought that yes, we had to be very particular about our art. It had to be specific. It could not be just pure universalism. Because within the universe, there were billions of planets, and you had to enjoy each planet. You just could not keep looking at a cluster of stars, the same way that you think about peoples, cultures, nations. Next, please. See? Oh, may silbita na. Yan, okay. More. Antipas Delotavo, your magic as well as social realist. Asked for special permission from the director of NAIA, NAIA 1, to be able to hang there all day and photograph all the OFWs, bringing back the economy to the Philippines. San Iloilo, no? San Iloilo, at least until last year, the Ilonggos may not have known it. Now they do. Next, please. Okay. One of my top portraitists, Amor Solo is there, Mulong Galicano is there, but Delotavo is there until his clones become better than him. But we'll not talk about Delotavo's clones. There are young people who are figuring out how to do the Delotavo way. And yeah. So these were in the 70s when our esteemed art critic Leo Benesa said, "What the hell are you wasting time on all that propaganda? That's not art." Ha ha ha. Ni boy pa kami. Sorry ah. Yeah. That was called propaganda. In the 70s, by like our most prominent art critic. I actually have a little story with B-Boy about how I got Doc Perez to take it back on a little negotiation about little things that we dealt with. But yes, I still believe it's legit art. Next, please. Yeah. And B-Boy, together with that, like many of you also knew the value of grouping together with like-minded souls to form not just a cultural event, but a movement that they knew, like with the Baguio Arts Guild, like with Pamilya Pintura of Bacolod, that you get your like-minded friends together, like Grupo Ocho even. And you get your like-minded friends together and you start joining all of your cultural efforts together. And you might start to convince a population from which you came. Now, again, why do you need to convince a population when art is for everybody in the world? I'll give you a simple answer. Why do you need a reserved parking place? What if somebody else takes your parking place? We all have a place on the earth. That is exactly why we follow this supposed democratic respect principle, that we all are entitled and should have our place, our footprint on the earth, not to be taken by everybody else and not for us to be sent to a gulag if we resist and insist on having our place. And we thought that in art, yes, we would also need to insist on our specific thought, our specific experience. We are going to seduce your tatay later on into elaborating on something that I cannot anymore, on our specific experience as Filipinos, on the whole circumstance of why the jeepney bloody came about, as a misplaced reparation, etc., etc. Okay. And therefore, Delotavo belonged to that. Sabi niya, no, the visuals we will show must tell you of a specific narrative, our narrative. Not the one that is encompassed by a 9-dash line, but more the one guided by UNCLOS. That whole narrative. Your parking space. Next, please. Yeah. Alrighty. Now, the famous itak sa puso ni Mang Juan, for those who were still in doubt as to what it was. And again, should I read to you what I wrote? Maybe hindi na, no? Self-sustaining, I think, is a good term to remember, because sustainability became the catchword of the 21st century. But self-sustaining, how can we sustain something that we don't grow inside of us? If we only copy it, if we let AI just gather it from all databases, how do we sustain it? Where is that emotive root that takes place? How do we filter everything according to an enjoyable experience, an enjoyable result? Because you can also savor, for those of you, of course, who understand manggang hilaw and bagoong, it cannot be explained to a Swede. We cannot. Diba? Can we explain, well, I do not know, but can we explain why we are so in love with balut? We cannot. These things are wired into us by accumulation. And that narrative we accumulate. That's why we self-define, we build. The art belongs to this. It is part of wallpapering your entire theater into which you act, into which you build. Next, please. This is an entire kind of ASEAN, post-colonial, But at the end of the day, the whole idea means that nung nakawala na yung mga dating sinakop, katulad natin, I'm sorry, does everybody understand Filipino? No. You will have to help and translate. When we were able to get away from many of our colonial masters, not just the Philippines, but Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, etc., then comes this era that they say, okay, what are you on about? What do you guys have inside of your empty ribs? Oh my God, they're not empty, they're full of soul, and they're full of pain. And they're full of, they're full of something we want to vomit out because it was colonialism. There you are. Delotavo looking through the kulambo. And yet it has to be a kulambo. Next, please. Yan. Somebody said on the internet, hindi na alam ng mga bata sino si Andres Bonifacio, si Jose Rizal na lang daw kilala. Oh my God. But be careful, that may be true eh. And like I said, be warned about being on the cusp of oblivion, no? We must be assertive about this also. We thank very much a lot of institutions that help to assert this for us, to help us, to support us, to remind people that yes, there were some people who actually suffered for us to enjoy more of our enjoyment nowadays, to have an identity. Bonifacio was one of them. Like I said, I'm not reading what I wrote. I'm assuming you're reading it already, no? Next, please. Here's my little timeline, just in case somebody wants, if you're at a cocktail party for an international gathering and say, well, somebody gathering, where did the Philippine art come from? Ha, 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 ha. How do you actually have a timeline of art? Okay, I put together like a pocket, ang tawag dun, poly pocket. I put a little pocket list of a couple of names that you might like to remember. Tomas Pimpin, of course, why? And if you go to, sorry, Vince Rafael. Okay, it's Vince Rafael really, from whom I stole this idea. If you go to Vince Rafael, Tomas Pimpin said, I will teach Filipinos Castilian so that they will not look stupid in front of a Castilian speaker. So his idea was, man, we live here and yet we look stupid because somebody speaks to us in a totally imported language and we don't even know. And yet we live here. We were born here. Our roots came from here. Our ancestors came from here. These guys came over with better weapons and suddenly it's their language. So that's what I attribute to Tomas Pimpin, the Ladino. We will teach you how to stand up to them I'm sure those of you who can speak French love to do it when you're at an alliance meeting with the director. N'est-ce pas? No, di ba? If we can speak their language, then we have power with them. And so Pinpin. Nicolas de la Cruz Bagay, of course, the guys who illustrated the Padre Murillo map. Damian Domingo. Therefore, there is a beginning to me, a whole set of sparks. I did this once in a lecture, it's called Sparks. All these little things that lit the candle. How did the candle get lit? Maraming kalabit ng lighter and they started to set sparks. They did not succeed the first time. Minsan pudpud yung bato. Esteban Villanueva is Evie, of course. Famous maker of Basi Revolt. We still have not yet concluded whether it was to tell people not to revolt or to tell people to revolt, but it was there. The 14 panels of the Basi Revolt. Patrick always says, sabi niya, is it cautionary or celebratory? Kasi in fairness, pugot lahat ng ulo ng rebelde at the end, no? And yet, ginarote rin naman si Gumbursa eh. So, you know, you can also celebrate people who were massacred. Next, please. And more. And this, we're getting into more familiar grade school humanities territory, no? You will take note that one of your cohorts is already there. It's not yet dead, not yet obscure, not yet in oblivion. Still a national artist, si Ben Cab. Yan. But this is like my little pocket timeline. You can always whip it out pag marami ka lang nainom na tapoy o gin or whatever. Pero naalala mo pa rin, hindi pare, meron kami talagang kasaysayan ng Pinoy. Kung kayo, merong mga Mantegna, Renaissance, post-Renaissance, high Renaissance. Kami may ganyan din kami, may landas rin kami. Next, please. At unti-unti makikita natin later on na si Delotavo, nandyan talaga, nakasalpak sa gitna ng landas, parang nasagasaang pusa. Pero nakalakad pa rin. No, he's not roadkill. You may have run over him, but he's still ano. Jaime, saling pusa. Saling pusa tuloy. Egay, our just late great Egay Fernandez. Danny Dalena. Habulan. Next, please. Yeah, and as we move to the, of course, you go to the other room and you see all of the Charlie Co. Adi Bayan Santos, we're still waiting. Ray Contreras, Anna Fair, Ofitiki, etc. Nune, Orly. Next. And then outside of like the more mainstream, Boy Dominguez, Saudi Ahmad from Hulo, Tausug, Bert Monterona, Salima Saway, Matigsalug, no? Ano ba yan? Oh, kapatid ni Waway. Kapatid ni Waway. And then Ramir, who also died recently. Ramir Tawasil, no? Recently passed away as well. Next, please. So there. Yan. For those of you who are familiar with the Holocaust pictures, no? Ano yan? Arbeit macht frei. No? Work sets you free. Yan. So, kay B-Boy naman, people had to go to work to earn during COVID. So he brings it to a different kind of necessity. We are more slaves, not just to the Nazis, but to like a kind of perverse biology that we have inflicted upon ourselves. And they're not Jews, although siguro may baon rin silang Jews, pero they're not Jews. Next, please. And then, of course, yan. The reconstruction, which is complete. The reconstruction, of course, of the face of... Ano yung slogan niyan, B-Boy? Subok sa krisis, pero sinabi ng mga tibak, takot sa misis. Di ba? Pero yung 1985 slogan niya ng snap election, subok sa krisis. Nalagyan ng tibak sila rin, takot sa misis. Yan. So here is Delotavo exercising both a kind of Rubik's Cube wit, without wanting to make it too obvious and too mundane, but at the same time, never losing the point of the narrative. Kailangan something recognizable. We do not abstract it to the point that eating a halo-halo becomes an intravenous thing. Can you imagine? Eating a halo-halo intravenously. It's so essentialized that that's what happens to you. There's no more, I mean, somehow we live for the pain, we live for the pleasure, we live for, you know, the perversity and the strange smells of things. And a specific narrative is what takes place in art. And most of us are interested in all the little ticks and tweaks and scars of the content of the narrative. Next, please. Yeah. Delotavo's tribute to the centennial, 100 years of just dying. To be alive. Diba? Yung classic, let's make war to have peace. Sa atin, no, let's damn die to be alive. We are willing to die so we might live, or so others might live thanks to our dying. Yeah. Dantaon. Asa na sa Biboy? Nakatago pa rin. Huh? In some powerful person's cachet. Well, we'll go into that later on. Pag wala ng slide para hindi na tayo masyadong ano. Next, please. Ayan. And then, of course, for those of you, well, our rather more senior filmmakers will remember the building of the PICC when it was being built. And Biboy was there to take notice of that and to take the specific feel of that architecture. 1976 World Bank loans, man, may biglang lumaking utopia sa tabing dagat. PICC, CCP, everything. No? I mean, everything started to unfurl. And yet, as Biboy said, in the shock of recognition, your ordinary people are still minions amidst all of this grandeur. Next, please. Yan, all right. Daming biyaherong Pinoy pero hindi turista. Answer? Bababang. OFW. Kung mas matanda ka, booking ka, OCW sasabihin mo. Pero sige na, OFW. The older ones of us would say OCW even when it began as a thought. Diaspora. What else do you say? No, it's called diaspora. It's almost about as big as this in real life. Ano? Mga ganyang kalakihan. It's 3 8x6 panels side by side. And that's how our economy doesn't tank, like it or not. Every middle of the year and every end of the year, yes, we suddenly experience a robust economy. Don't tell me none of you ever thought of having a money-sending business to augment your art practice. I haven't. We might think about it. Next, please. And yes, the juxtaposition of the ill-fated Coca-Cola logo that looks like itak sa puso ni Mangwan. What I always wanted to bring out in Iloilo also, which I think they appreciated, sabi ko, the one thing that Delotavo takes advantage of is juxtaposition. Pag itinabi niya yung dalawang imahen, nagkakaroon ng kahulugan. Sabi ng mga tao, ano pong ibig sabihin nun? Pag tumabi ka kay mayor at magpa-selfie ka, juxtaposition yun. Pinapaalam mo sa magulang mo na sikat ka na kilala ka ni mayor. We do juxtaposition every time we do a selfie or a group fee. And we assume nga, ang daming kaibigan ng mamang yun ah. No, they just take pictures together. But you realize the implication of that juxtaposition. Putting images side by side with each other. Me together with many collectors who are really high-powered collectors. Thank you for looking at my work. Hindi pala binili, tinignan lang. But let's have a selfie together because that increases my CV. In fact, balang araw, the CB will not be made of shows, it's how many selfies you've taken. Think about it. I'm sure you know a couple of people who do that nowadays. Diba? Milyones pa. Milyones pang usapin, no? Milyones pa. Oh, sige. Next. Self-explanatory. This one is now like really being appropriated by one of your favorite clone admirers. Next, please. Yeah. Again, the juxtaposition of people who cannot look at the luxury or cannot be in the luxury, framed outside of it. Most likely kept out also by security guards, but they have no way to force their way in. In fact, maybe some of them are on their way to dressing up to become security guards to keep people like them from coming in and enjoying the IKEA, the Habitat, the Domus, Roche Beaubois. No? There you go. Next, please. Yeah. It's a time. Right? This was the first time, and funnily, this is a real phenomenon. The social realists were allowed to show at Bobby Chabet's Pinaglabanan. Although it wasn't Bobby Chabet's anymore kasi inaaway niya si Agnes at si Michael at that particular time. So this is a little bit of a gap. But nevertheless, in 1987, SR showed at Pinaglabanan, writers were pitting them against each other. Na parang, eto yung talagang hindi magkakamayaw na movement. Pure conceptualism and like the material narrative of being alive in the Philippines. Ironically, to my mind, they were the most original, both of them, of the Filipino. And in fact, they put groups together. And many of us, I still think, hover around the manifestos of conceptualism. Of course, SR really had a manifesto. Conceptualism, I think, had a posthumous one written by the admirers of Bobby Chabet later on in the book. Next, please. Yeah. And more of the things. Juxtapositions again. Delotavo obviously is an expert figurative painter. We did not include the rich people that he painted, but he also did. And that also sustained all of us in this long journey. Next, please. Yeah. And in fact, this I find funny. He actually wanted to paint a picture of Singapore because he was going to show in Singapore. And he intuitively said, Singapore is relatively successful but dull. It does not ferment. Hindi katulad natin, we're so full of fermentation. So we're also good for the probiotics. They're really like fluoride, no? Walang germs pero fluoride. Patay rin ang utak mo ng konti. For those of you who like TikTok, obviously, do you follow Gary Breca, no? Fluoride, no? Stay away from brushing your teeth, assholes. You're gonna go dumb. We will tackle that later on because I think some people want to discuss brushing teeth and fluoride, but sige. The funny thing is that the ruling party of Singapore, as its proper costume, the People's Action Party, all wore white. So sabi ko, B-boy, alam mo ba yun na ang People's Action Party, ang kanilang costume for rally, lahat naka all white? Hindi. Sabi ko, awan ng Diyos, nakashow pa rin sa Singapore. And of course, the Filipina in the foreground. No. Lucky Plaza. Lucky Plaza. Singapore Travelers. I will just say Lucky Plaza, Wisma Areté, which does not exist anymore, but Lucky Plaza still, where you can get at the 5th level bagoong balot and all of the Filipino foods. His latest foray into Iloilo. And sabi ng mga Ilonggo, "Uy, atin yun na." Oo nga naman, dito lumaki yung pintor nyo. Ngayon nyo lang nakilala. Yan. So, signs of, what's that? Art Deco and Neoclassic Iloilo architecture. Next, please. Yan. The King. Yan, The King. I think makikilala nyo, maikli yung kamay para mas mabilis ang suntok eh. Ganun daw yun eh. Pag maikli yung braso, mas maraming suntok in one jab eh. Nakakalima sa isa. The King. And yet Delotavo depicted him as a standee. Even if standees were not yet famous. Mahirap kasing gawa ng standee nung wala pang tarpaulin printing eh. Ngayon hindi. Bota na kahit sino. I will say a bad joke. Merong carwash doon sa may amin. Sa sulok ng carwash para magbayad kami, nakatayong digong. Standee. Sabi ko, ako bota magbabayad naman kami ng tig-100 para magpahugas ng kotse. Ano ba kayo, may digong standee, tinatakot nyo pa yun, baka tumakas daw yung SUV na nagpahugas. So the standee, no? It's a useful thing. It's also useful for taking juxtapositions, always, di ba? If you can't have the celebrity, damn, a standee works. Sasabihin mo, hindi, Photoshop yan, AI yan, kaya mukhang flat. Sige, next please. And then, of course, floor contemplation, our favorite paradox. And people buried in an avalanche, a drought, a flood of blab, of blather, no? Cheche Bureche, as Kiko Escora would call it. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah. B-Boy is demonstrating to people with interior needs that I can actually paint still life. Bagay rin sa salas nyo, bagay rin sa ano. We all need to make a living in the middle of protesting about the injustice of the world. Yung mga huling dumating dito sa harapan, para pwede ko kayong tignan sa mata, tanungin kung bakit late kayo. Come, please. No, please, come to the forward. Come to the forward, puta naman. Come to the front. No worries, no worries. Matatapos na eh. Don't apologize. Matatapos na. Next, please. And finally, that's the last one. Who does art serve? Is it the over-endowed elites? Is it the summation of human aspiration? And might not the larger majority have aspirations? Might they be entitled to the fruits of progress, innovation, standards of living? Might the man on the street feel that he was self-determined and not an enslaved relic of an elite colonialist epoch? This was how we sought to reintroduce Delotavo to the Ilonggos. I dare say they did graffiti about him. Sunugin, patayin niya, Ilonggo na yan. No? Pinahiya tayo, puro kahirapan sa Pilipinas pinakita. No, actually no. In fairness, I think the Ilonggos got an improved appreciation of one of their sons, who has ironically left behind Iloilo to live with us in Manila. But this is also these are the little dynamics of our archipelago, which we will further explore when you are talking and not me, because this is the end of my afternoon's entertainment.
Thank you. Hindi ko alam kung anong susunod. Pero before anything else, sorry, I forgot this. We'd like to acknowledge the presence of national artist Kidlat Tahimik with us. We apologize for the avant-garde treatment earlier. Next time, use my name. Sige, so what's next, Bogie? Ikaw pa rin eh.
Tira mo yung mic eh. I'm just kidding. Okay. You can also stay in your place because I realize it's very hard to ask 70-somethings to stand up and change the seats, ano? So, no. Ironically, we'll only have one mic because I really need somebody else talking aside from myself. But here we are again nga. That's one what did I say about defying gravity? Obviously nga, we cannot make, even if we, I mean, Santi made his own radar, but you know, bobombahin rin ng mga inchik yun. It was a metaphor, no? It was a metaphor. I think we are aware of the radar. And yes, in reality, maybe nga, we may all die in a blitzkrieg. In Mandarin, maybe, I don't know. I always tell my friends, well, remember the Japanese in Davao in 1939, and yeah, maybe that's the way of the world nowadays. But to me, what is even a little more scary, really, is that we are all going to be replaced by the ultimate slave, artificial intelligence. And so, that is what I would like to ask your opinions about, and I will open the floor to you, because that's where I want to go. In spite of the fact that some people like us have tried to show the anxieties of a post-colonial existence for the last 50 years. And I will use this word because I think quietly many of you use the word to yourselves, but don't want to talk about it in happy places. The word is inexorable. Inexorably. Darating yan pag umulan ng 8 oras, sigurado baha ang driveway mo. It's inexorable. It is something that we sometimes say, oh, bahala na, or we go to bathala na and say, bahala na. But we also sometimes, I think the more pragmatic and survivalist of us will say, yes, there's a kind of inexorability about this whole thing, in spite of Kubrick and Hal. Man, I mean, Hal shanghaied the whole Jupiter trip. 1969 pa, anak ng putsa. Wala nakikinig eh. Wala nakikinig. And yet here we are. All your selfies will be the database for which they will make newer selfies with more celebrities. Can you imagine? Oh. Or I said nga, yeah. At the end of the day, most of us must make guerrilla, obscure performances that are not in any database. And yes, maybe we might be saved. But anything that is on a database, oh, let me ask the question. Anybody can answer in any, no old people spared, no young people rescued. Was the internet good for humanity? Can you get off Facebook and answer my question? Can you please put your phones aside, stop looking at Facebook and answer the question? Yeah, no, diba? But was the internet good for humanity? Yes or no? I mean, I'm not grading any of you. Please, there's no grade. Remember that. That's why I also didn't want to go back to school and teach, because you had to give a grade. There is no grade for things like this. I still get paid, but there's no grade. That's the beauty of all of this. Why? Sige, sige. Can you guys hear him? Can you hear? Oh, sige, sige.
Yeah. The more you eat rice, the more mabubusog ka, pero wala namang mapupuntang sustansya sa'yo, di ba? Whereas, you know, if you have selectively kind of like consumed the rice, whether it be a red rice, in a small amount, with a quality and substance, then I think that's how internet would be of use to anyone. Because yeah, it's a very polluted space. It's a polluted universe. And we want to see the substance of that universe, and being able to recognize the true substance of the internet is the trick and the mastery of using the internet. Kaya, from my point of view, marami sa atin, we use it as like parang in order to just satisfy our instant gratification on education and information and all that sort of thing, and then become masters of knowledge according to Google. I think it's a very dangerous kind of like precedence or source of information. So I think internet, from my point of view, is a down thing. I still believe in the analog way of learning through our kind of the constant kind of like a teacher, which is our own universe, the environment that speaks the truth, the authenticity of what existence is all about. Yun lang.
Young people, defend your addiction. Please, come on. You haven't turned off your phone, so I know you have an addiction to it. Please, anybody. I think Malik said something very vital, no? But yes, please. Yes, please. Sige.
Hello. Yeah, well, good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Japhet Kariuki, and I am from Kenya. And I got to the Philippines because of the internet. And and how did that happen? I'll give you a picture of how the internet has impacted. No, I'll give you a picture of how the internet has impacted our society. In 1986, when I was about 5 years old, we had one TV station, and my mom called me because the TV station would run between 4 and 10 p.m., and she called me to show me something that was happening. And this show was called, translated in English, was called The World This Week. And on that day, she was showing me pictures of the People Power Revolution. And she said, never become like this woman, because she has a closet full of thousands of shoes, and yet her people are hungry, and you only have 2 feet. That was many years ago, almost 30 years ago. Never would I have thought that I would come to be in the Philippines. I came here to work with Shell. Now, what has happened between 1986 and 2024? Number one, communication. It would take us, think about it. All I need to know is how my mom is doing. Send her a message on WhatsApp. Mom, you're fine. And I'm fine. Can I see you? Yes, I can see you on video call. Without the internet, that would have been snail mail through the Philippine Post. Maybe it takes about a month, right? Now, think about just that simple form of communication, the experience of OFWs pre-80 and today, how that brings together people, right? That's one thing, communication. Think about something as simple as information, right? How does information get disseminated across the world, right? It may be disinformation, but it is information, right? And it's up to you as a user to be able to disseminate what is the right information, right? So gone are the days where you relied on the print, the newspaper print. When something happens, like 3 hours ago, the worst flood happened in Brazil, and you already have information and you can see the pictures of this is happening. If this was the 1986 period, I would have waited a whole week for it to be shown on that TV station that only ran between 8 hours a day, right? Think about finance, right? You mentioned about money changing or money transactions. That was telegraphic orders. It had to go not only through the bank, it had to go through the postal office, it had to go through a check clearing and everything. Today, you can send money instantaneously, right? And all that is because of internet. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I'm just talking about the basic things that have enabled us to live a better life. So I end up in the Philippines because of the internet, because we were able to communicate, we were able to bridge the gap, and we were able to learn more about each other, and for us to be able to build a better society. So in my opinion, I think the internet in itself as a technology has been one of the best technologies that has enabled humankind to be able to transcend numerous challenges. And just to close off, think about how the world would have been during the COVID pandemic without the internet. Just think about that. It would have taken us almost 50 years to get a vaccine. something that took less than 9 months. It would have taken us not less than 3 months for the global world to know that there was a pandemic, right? So if you just think about in that context, how technology has helped us transcend all these challenges, I think it's one of the best innovations of our generation.
I am waiting for an anti-vaxxer to raise their hand. It's your forum if anybody wants to say so. Because they would also say that it was the medium of disinformation, I would say. No? 10 seconds has passed, we will move on to the next topic. Because we do not have any determined anti-vaxxers among us. Continuing on your, continuing on your thread, like the whole idea, again, all right. Do you agree that certain people should spend, the gross income of thousands of their workers to just try to lift off from planet Earth and find another planet? Or if I'll frame the question in another way. Sabi niya, you have all the bloody money to look for another place to live, but you've destroyed the planet that you were living on. Dave, you wanted to say something? Yeah. So again, yes, we do have the internet, and the internet may be like our fantastic bowl of sugar. We will not get anywhere, and yet, do you think we are abusing it? And I ask these questions also in the service of us making art to contemplate these concepts. Because again, like I said, I have been constantly losing sleep over the idea that somebody will just punch in 5 lines and there will be an artwork coming out. Oh my God, Delotavo and I spent 35 years just learning how to paint, and then this guy just knows how to punch in a couple of prompts. And there will be, and then of course, the pros and cons would be, wow, man, fantastic, you're a genius artist. Something to that effect. We all like to be titillated by somebody who just is too diplomatic to say, hey man, stop copying that fucking thing, man. Because it's also not good to be impolite on the internet. Yes, please. Thoughts?
Yeah, I came here because of the title, Anti-Gravity. Yung benefit of internet, I don't want even to get into that argument. Pero the thing is this, that, yeah, for somebody like me, you talked about the artists benefiting from all this. I think if I were one of the young people who's trying to make the 20 advertisements for Coca-Cola in 2 months, maybe, yeah. But for the creative side, okay, I'm siguro extreme ako, no? I take time to make a film. My other films were like 14 years, and my latest film is, believe it or not, 44 years, and it's still not yet finished. Now, would I have made it better? Because if the internet and all this digital no, I didn't mean that. This digital stuff, if it came earlier and then I could have finished this film 20 years ago, well, maybe, sige, I would have probably had a little more money in my pocket. Pero yung thrill ng waiting, may you call it analog, I don't know. Waiting, tapos biglang, oops, merong pumasok sa ulo mo. Yeah, I have 3 shots of this. Something I shot a video 10 years ago. Hanapin ko, isasama ko sa collage ngayon. I think that process benefits me more than being able to Google right away. Oh, I need 3 images of somebody who's wearing a bag in the space agency. So that's just to bring it to that realm, no? Yung kung will it benefit me as an artist? Pero siguro itong anti-gravity, I think you're talking about. Are you talking about the more ethics or the logic of some guy trying to be the first person to set up maybe set up a a bump car or a roller coaster on Mars, no? Tama ho kayo na yung kailangan natin, there are too many things pressing on this planet. Pero if you're more talking about artists and our creativity, yeah, I'm content with my analog 44 years in the making. And but if I were looking at my bank account, I'd probably be.
You'd like the remittance?
I would be happy with all this digital stuff that can make me finish it. So I don't know. We're trying to find a center for this discussion. Between that gravity and this whole internet thing, and AI. Yeah, I don't think I'm too comfortable in everything that's digitized and high speed and AI.
If I might apologize, I am not leading to some kind of teleology. It is really a provocation. I am trying to irritate you into some pearls. I am aware, and I think there are enough of us who are old enough to have tried to apply for a job using a fax machine. And that fax machine was 13 kilometers from where you live because that's the only one who had a fax machine. And it would have allowed me and my wife to have a better delivery. So practical, simple things. So I think Jonathan also hits a very vital part of that entire contradiction. So I think if you will allow yourselves not to live in an absolute place, but for us to dwell together in the whole contradiction, there are always pros and cons. And I think that enough of us have also, I mean, you know, I don't have Nike AI designed, the latest Nike AI designed 3D printed sneaker. No, I still like my Islander or whatever because damn, it just fits between my toes, and some things really work no matter how old and kind of there's this whole idea also of the coexistence of Neanderthals among us, no? Or the whole idea of multiple worlds existing side by side. Maybe that's the question. I will ask Delotavo. I'll put him on the spot. Do you find, maybe, that the existence of totally incompatible worlds, I think I'll name a filmmaker that recently I like, Neil Blomkamp, Elysium. A planet only for those who had security guards. Everybody else has to die in the dump that was Earth. I think that was the basic, rundown of what Elysium was. There is a planet for superior human beings. Or is that the mandate of a superior human being? It is interesting that while you did not shout it out, you came here because of one of the biggest fossil fuel manufacturers, energy providers, one of the biggest movers of contradiction on the planet, I think. I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but I think that we can agree on this. But yes, B-Boy, is it our inexorable fate to live in stratified worlds that, no, you cannot go. He used to complain, hindi pinapapasok sa Forbes Park yung beetle pare, tinitignan ng guardia. The security guard at Forbes Park in the rich enclave discriminates against anybody riding a beetle. No, you don't deserve to enter this enclave. And yet, that may be the... what are your thoughts?
About the internet, there are lots of good things in it and bad things also. Tapos, na-oversaturated as information na may information overload actually. Ako, nami-mesmerize ako sa internet na hindi na ako makakagawa kasi napakagaling ng mga vloggers ang mga sa YouTube, ganda ng paggagawa. So, actually, ano ba talaga ang purpose mo sa buhay? Sabi nga ni Bruce Lee, observe and apply o learn and apply. Ang dami kong natutunan sa carpentry, sa filmmaking. Hindi mo na nga kailangan ng film school Nandun na lahat pati sa painting So pero actually wala ka na ring time para i-apply yun Kasi naubos ang oras mo ron sa internet kasi parang before you knew it, addicted ka na. Wala ka rin na-accomplish. Saka napakarami ng mga dapat na yung practical na ma-apply mo sa real life na hindi mo na ma-apply kasi parang siguro sense of discernment ang kailangan mo rin. Siguro dahil mas matanda ako, mas alam ko siguro kung ano ang relevant o hindi. Pero para sa mga bata,
Hindi po ko mai-English.
Oo, so, yun ang hindi ko alam kung ano mangyayari sa kanila. Pero inevitable ito talaga wala na tayong magagawa. Hindi tayo pwedeng magsabi na hindi na mawawala ang internet. Nandyan yan. So, eventually, kahit na yung artificial intelligence, talagang we have to learn to live with it Kasi nung dumating yung photography, takot din yung mga artist Sabi nga nila, painting is dead. Nung dumating yung photography. Pero eventually lahat naging art na rin, pati pintor gumagaya sa photography which is during that time talagang tabu yun. Kahit sina Delacroix, tinatago nila yon, sina Degas, na kumukopya sila sa photography. Siguro yun ang parallelism sa artificial intelligence. Lahat na-democratize na rin ang pagiging genius siguro. Yun ang masasabi ko dyan. Pero hindi ko alam. Pero may dangers din. Siyempre, ang misinformation, mga false news, yun naman. Kasi ang ganda ng, yun ang nakakatakot.
Let us bring it to something that is closer to your gut if it is not close to your conceptual brain, Raise your hands if any of you eats GMO food. Do you like it? Are you not afraid of the genetic consequence?
Well, that's again misinformation. We all eat GMO food. It's just that we have not been told how this GMO food came to be. Rice is a GMO. Rice was a grass that was found natively, taken into the lab, propagated. Because that is the disinformation that we get as individuals, that we are pushed onto the right side, that we don't look at the practical understanding of what GMO in itself means. Forget about the GMO Monsanto kind of foods, right?
That's what I'm referring to.
Well,
We cannot forget about it because it's one of the most prevalent and inexorable suppliers.
Filipinos have a diet that is based on a lot of GMO content, canned foods. Most of that content that goes into that canned food to preserve it is GMO created, right? Now, the problem with GMO, and I come from a continent where we eat things fresh from the ground, right? And everything organic and everything, right? But if we were to rely on only that, we would be wiped out. Right now, something is happening around the world which is changing weather patterns. You cannot predict when you're going to be able to harvest. So you have to create, that is the concept of genetically modifying organisms, to be able to withstand these changes, to create a better grass that yields more grain kernels, to create a better cow that is able to yield more milk, right? Now, just as any innovation, there is the bad actors, the Monsanto types, who will go around and create things like DDT and all these other things that end up coming into the human ecosystem and causing us harm, right? And that is the problem. When we look at the GMO discussion on that single lens of what these bad actors, the Monsantos, the Bayers are doing, we miss the bigger picture of what GMO has done through many years to be able to ensure that the human civilization has succeeded. So I think when you asked about GMO, I am coming from a point of where this was a very big discussion in Africa, where we had people saying that now the Western world has killed majority of the people and now they have come for Africans. But the question is, right now, if people cannot feed themselves because they are still using archaic forms of farming and breeding livestock, and then there's this new concept, or there's this new thing that will allow them to create drought-resistant tubers, or to create a kernel of corn that will be able to have more production. You miss the point when you just say, oh, that's GMO, we're not going to eat that. Let me go get that small natural organic maize of mine that has very few kernels, because you cannot survive on that in the long run. So again, that's the misinformation and the negative aspect that we are being pushed to look at. Now, let me just close off by talking about this defying gravity for non-billionaires, right? It does not make sense for you to make money and go try to find another continent for us to live when we haven't even solved the problems in the earth, right? But we also have to take a step back and ask ourselves, the three people that have been pushing this space race, they were not royal. They did not come from privileged backgrounds, right? They made their money based on their own ingenuity. Amazon, Tesla, Virgin, yes, right? So I think it's just that appetite in them of entrepreneurial that is being focused on what I would say it would have been much better if they focused that entrepreneurial energy on creating a better world. But for them, they're living on another level, right? A billionaire level is nowhere close to us, right? So for them, things like world hunger, things like traffic, things like Ayuda, it does not make sense to them. So they will not try to solve those problems, right? They are thinking about another problem of them, which is creating another continent where they can live. But I always tell people what they're trying to do is futile. Because at the end of the day, all these places they want to go, they don't have the building blocks of humanity to exist. There is no oxygen. We cannot live in hermetic enclosures for the rest of our life. So they're just going to waste their money. And once they realize that, they all come back down to earth.
Please. Jonathan has brought up some very important points, and that to me is the point of the provocation. I will also never pretend to tell you that I have the answers. But the more we provoke each other constantly without having to kill each other, you know, we remember that's the human line. We can provoke each other, but we stop short of, there's that, maybe the respect. Again, I will go back to the word, and I say the word is inexorable. Like, what's the point? What's the point of resisting? Of course, we have not talked about Bill Gates and all his GMO. Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, I am not media attuned. I must speak into the mic for the recording. We have not yet begun to talk about Bill Gates and all his GMO adventures, of course. No? So that's one billionaire doesn't make rockets. He makes a lot of deviations on the plants that we are used to eating. But again, at least you... Sorry.
Hello
Sorry.
po.
Yes, please, please.
I actually wanted to respond to the, ako po si Smile, so I teach at the Fine Arts Department. I wanted to respond to the discussion on internet and AI, and I think, and at least to some extent also to the point of like why people behave the way they do. And I think it's a matter of shifting values. I think now we focus so much on speed and efficiency and really production of volume, that the internet has become such an important tool that we can't deny anymore that it stays here, because it really feeds into our need for things to be fast and for things to be done in scale. I see this in my students, how they've all adopted the use of ChatGPT, even if it's so obvious that their papers sound like robots, because they really want to do much, much more at much little time. And so I think what we've sacrificed... Yes. Yes, and but I think what we've sacrificed is our value or appreciation for craft, or at least the appreciation for process. And that process, I really find my students now more difficult, who find it more difficult to sit in the discomfort of a long process. Like, I think they'd really appreciate the idea that some things take 44 years and more for an artwork to be built. And so I think that also points to why we want to move somewhere else, because this feels like such a difficult place to be in now, where you're all just forced to produce a lot at much little time. And the pressure just builds on us. Actually, nag-resonate po ako dun sa sinasabi ni Sir na YouTube can just eat up a lot of your time. Because my takeaway is, if I do try to take a break and go into this rabbit hole of vloggers, my takeaway is I would probably earn more as a vlogger than I would as a teacher. And so there's also that added pressure that I should be monetizing the internet because it's a resource that I've not yet explored. And I think that's where most of, at least the students that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, they're there. No? So they really want to monetize the internet. They want to always be... And when I say they, I mean parte naman po ako ng young people who I think share that same perspective, no, that we really want to be able to monetize the internet because that's where most of our pop culture lives in now. But there's really just so much pressure to produce more and at a much faster pace. And I'm also not sure how to slow things down and also share that value with my students, because I feel like I'm part of a generation who was both digital and analog. So millennial po kayo. So naabutan ko no, when we still had to buy cassette tapes in Odyssey. But now, di ba, like and now you get so frustrated if it takes 10 seconds for Spotify to load. I mean, before you really have to go to Odyssey, buy a cassette, di ba, find it, pa-plug mo pa yung player. So things used to take more time. And I think that's one of the things that we lost because of the internet. But it's also one of the things that we value most. So I think it's also just a matter of slowing things down or being more mindful that we can slow things down. And maybe this to like this urgency to always be the first, or always this urgency to innovate things, it will also push us to be more reflective of why we do what we do. Because yun yung takeaway ko sa internet, just because you can, that doesn't mean you should. And the more resource you have, yan nga ako as a teacher here in Ateneo, no, our students really have a lot of resources. Pero diba, even kahit na meron sila, even if they have it, sometimes I ask them if they should do it. Even if they do have the resource to do ChatGPT or to click DALL-E to produce their artwork, should they, diba? So yun po. Thank you.
May I add one more? Is there anybody else going to continue? Yes? Sorry. May I add? Does anybody else want to respond? Because I think I have to be very thankful for Jonathan to be very brave about expressing what seems to be almost a contrarian idea. But yes, that's the whole idea of discussion. May I add to the word inexorable, may I add one more, monopoly. What do you think of monopoly? Not the board game, but of course the board game is a paradigm of exactly that some people can afford to build rockets when plants are dying because the agriculture has been neglected or has been taken over exactly by players who have exclusive rights to seeds and feeds and fertilizers, and therefore monopoly. Out of out of poly, mono eh, baliktad ano? Can you see that inherently contradictory word? There are many of us and yet they all belong to one. Is this the planet that we'd like to continue into? I keep telling my kids, it's your problem, I'm gonna die in 10 years. But you know, still, I'm addressing the ones who are not getting the 500 peso or 500 rupiah. Ano. What do you think of the word monopoly? Because to my extent, I think Jonathan has brought a very good point that there are a big number of the population who can find functionality, a utilitarian good use. And yet there's a kind of inexorable monopoly that also lies in just owning all the servers that we all need to use. We've heard of the towns that Zuckerberg is building, and the whole town will just be serverville. You just serve the people who pull in and pull out the plugs. The machines do all the work. And then you can go buy all the guns and rebel and have a civil war.
30, 40 years ago, about trying to build my own rocket ship to play the yo-yo on the moon. Maybe it was a kind of a spoof on the NASA program. But in the, just a very brief thing, it's making a rocket ship out of scrap, out of recycled things, debris in the farm. And I have this bathtub that becomes the rocket ship. And I have to find an alternative fuel. This was the time of the OPEC crisis. All the prices of gasoline were going up, and suddenly everybody's looking, and I, I found the alternative fuel is onions to rocket my bathtub rocket ship to go. But it was I find it pertinent now to your title of the billionaires na pwede silang mag-launch ng rocket kasi they have been able to monopolize using those latest technology. So whether the benefit of internet or the benefit of GMOs, what's his name? Jonathan. Huh? Gabet. Yeah, the Philippines was the first GMO. I think the biggest, greatest GMO experiment was the Miracle Rice, Erie. Anyway, I was an economist at that time, and my whole career was going on. I was writing reports about fertilizer distribution in the third world. And I realized that later on, I was doing it, and everybody was saying, wow, we're feeding more people, because yes, the GMO was offering yields 10 times what the former yield was. But by looking at that quantity, which is what economists do, maybe something else was overlooked. And it's like the rest of the world today, whether we can blame cancer to a lot of this, whether we can blame it to the monopoly that Exxon and all the big petroleum companies started getting all these fertilizers into the world market. I think it would be futile to go into that because, yes, there are benefits, but we will all be looking at different telescopes to make our arguments clearer. But the point is, I think, at least for me, when I I could make a rocket ship, an alternative rocket ship, using the most crude, using the power of the onion. Okay, that's a very poetic, a artistic poetic license. But if I reframe what I did before, it was just a very playful way. I think maybe today I would ask the same question. If supposing Musk or Bezos would hear about an onion fuel technology, but he cannot make profit on it, he will not be able to take advantage of the latest doctorate, PhD thesis in MIT or even MIT here, Mapua Institute of Technology. He would just, if somebody cannot make the profit on that, would they still try to put that rocket ship to go to the moon? In my film, I was a naive OFW working in a farm, in a German farm, and I start playing with the things in the barn, and then the kids become my main supplier of little
Spare parts.
But it tries to look scientific. It looks, but in the end, it was not organizing monopoly resources to be able to create a multi-billion rocket ship that will be able to come back, and after landing on Mars will be able to come back. So maybe it brings us now to away from your practical level, which was what the Miracle Rise was all about. And I think even President Marcos was making that his main accomplishment. But did it really alleviate hunger for the rest of the world? No, that was what it was touted to be. So philosophically, that is, on an economic level, that was the best argument. And I'm not disparaging what you're saying, but then in a playful way that I started my little narrative about somebody trying to find alternative, and it turned out to be a spoof on the NASA. Yeah, is it necessary to spend so much when in the end we probably need to put our resources on something else? But the thing is more, what is the long run effect if we're so in a hurry to get a man on the moon or on Mars, and we find the latest combination of digital and AI, and everything goes in that direction because the monopolizers are able to put those resources, but I think the profit is their main thing. Now, where does that? I think that's probably where we're now talking about anti-gravity and the role of the millionaires. No, is there another way to find a social reason for going to Mars, and then using the resources we have so that it's also balanced for other priorities on the planet? No? Maybe that's the question I'm trying to ask.
We replaced the whole idea of GMO agri-industrial tracts of land, and we went back to the distribution to small farmers, which I'm sure you have seen has come, maybe has failed, has resurged, but has also been fought because, yes, there is less profit for a centralized monopoly in the accumulation of all the benefits of distributed agriculture. I know this seems to have nothing to do with art, no? But I still say that art ironically covers all of life. It should be a reflection of life. And if we have no ideas about life, then our art is basically retinal candy, which is not, ironically, which is one of the very saleable kinds of art nowadays. You know, I think we have a lot of eye candy. It doesn't really need to touch on anything. It doesn't need to frustrate any monopoly owners. I'll use another word which maybe because you are on social media or on television, comes up very often in the last 3 weeks, divesting. Institutions in places where they feel they have the wealth want the powerful monopolists not to pay for their facilities. Why? Because they feel that the powerful monopolists also condone the murder of people in a supposed sovereign territory. So, yeah, it's not too much fun. I hate to say. That's what you get for inviting a social realist to talk. But yeah, but there we are again. So I'm throwing, again, no, because I think that when you get maybe even to just a cocktail party, in many varieties we will hear the word inexorable. What the heck? That's where the world is going. We have no power to stop it. So maybe my question is there some kind of moral alternative left us who are not billionaires? Is there a moral way, or are we condemned to be accumulated by billionaires as one of their holdings, and therefore run our entire cultural scene according to, like, somebody asked me for, what kind of artists do you hate? I said, the people who are under 35 who sell for 5 million. I hate them. Because I worked so hard that I haven't gotten there yet. But there's a germ of excess in the capacity to drive an auction market for, I think you will agree, maybe obscenity might be applied to this entire overpaid auction market of possibly questionable quality. I'm going to address the senior art makers, and I would say maybe there's questionable quality. Oops. No, we're not going to talk about questionable quality. Okay, I'm going to stay away. That's for another neighbor. That's for another neighbor. Okay. But yeah, but there we are. No, is there? I suspect that we are about to wind up. But maybe the question I wanted to ask is, yes, to sum it up, and I thank you very much for, that courage to seem like a contrarian. But yes, please, can we be more contrarian? And unfortunately, yes, some of us will perish in the following of contrarians. But contrarians are just merely elevating the level of discourse because they see principles that are hitting against the absolutism of one other kind of discourse. And they are trying to elevate it to a more utilitarian level of discourse. Not that more of us can use. You rightly pointed out very well. Yes, the internet, if not abused. Offhand question. How many of you know gamers? Anybody? Gamers in the family? Any gamers in the family? People who quietly spend 11 hours a day in front of killing all their imaginary friends and getting sick in the process and drinking a lot of Coke and chips and processed foods and sugar. Yes, no? I do also. I do. Your pamangkin as well. Not you, ah? Sure. Okay. Yeah. Not anymore.
Like my pamangkin, he's now 17, I think, but when he was 13, I was in the Netherlands with my Filipino partner, and boy is 13. Speaks fluently English. Why? He is on Fortnite the whole day with people from all over the world, so he can speak to my Filipino partner without any problem. So there's positive parts to that as well.
Anybody experienced the FB hits a couple of weeks ago? Because my gamer son said, in Discord we found out it's also in Madrid, in Thailand, in Ireland. Oh my God, thanks for reassuring me. I thought I just punched in the wrong password, no? But yeah, there is a point to that. But I'm still praying that maybe my son might change his mind. He goes to... Also, it's a shoot 'em up. I mean, I don't understand why people have to kill each other imaginatively, day in, day out, quarrel over it. If you have a gamer relative, you will see that at 3 o'clock in the morning, there are people arguing very vehemently about how to shoot somebody down. Right? No, di ba? So, here we are. Now we are plumbing, forgive me, the idea of questioning the ability of people who have accumulated. What I think sometimes we aspire to be partly our wealth, but is not. Because there are structures that have prevented us, and we have different manners of coping with trying to redistribute this wealth. Some people say that, yeah, the internet is like the new democracy. Ironically, or it's like maybe the new Jacobin who are killing each other after the revolution because you actually allowed like raw democracy to take place. One last question before we go, because I think one of the burning questions of the contemporary world is, or as I would tell my son, nowadays, son, I think we are reduced to the choice of which imperialist do you prefer? The one that is built on gimmickry and spectacle, or the one that is built on straight surveillance and social conduct? The social conduct grading, of course, of China. No? Therefore, you cannot buy bubble gum if you have no social credits. Eventually, the control, no? So we are hovering between Studio 54 and North Korea, somehow. I mean, I think every day without acknowledging it, we make this choice. Which part of this world do I identify with, do I belong to, and which part of the world will it, again, inexorably become? You say, why do you use the word inexorable? Most of us, and I remember my long friendship with B-Boy, most of us will actually leave our very abundant native land to go to the city. Because that's where all the capital is. Because that's where all the capital is fluttering about and we can pick it up. Because that's where all our imaginations will be fulfilled. No, I'm not going to stay and talk to the goats. I'm not going to stay and crack the parched land and feed people. No, I'm going to go to the city because, yes, the comfort, the spectacle, the benefit, the imagination is fulfilled in the city. 100 years ago, that would have been a strange argument. Now it's inexorable. Bakit ka magtatagal dito sa bundok? No, why are you going to stay in the boondocks for the rest of your life? Go down to the city. Mix. Go down to the center. But how much control do we have of the center? Or how much are we a part of the center? Or, as I would say before, are we such excellent surfers that no matter what capitalist tsunami comes up, we're gonna ride that fucking wave out, and we are gonna stay upright, and we're gonna raise our hand, and then we're going to eat a little GMO corn and be nourished and hang around the beach for the next wave? It's also possible. I didn't want to lecture, please, thoughts. My wife knows I can go on like this for hours, but I don't think this is what I wanted you to know. Jonathan, Japheth. Any more? Please. It is always refreshing with somebody.
Well, I don't know your thinking, and I like the provocation of your thought, right? And the question that you put across. And if we go back to perhaps the creative industry and we ask ourselves, does AI change the way the creative industry is going to be? Does it change the role of the creative talent as we know it? And I think we've had the answer is no. It's a resounding no. 2020, there was a big news. Christie's had started selling AI-generated art. Today, nobody talks about that, right? That's, nobody's even interested in AI-generated art, right? During the COVID pandemic, the hottest thing was digital art, NFTs. People were buying all these pixelated artworks, and people would not understand why you're paying millions and billions for all this, right? But through and through, what we have seen in the creative industry is that the art that speaks to the people, the art that stands the test of time, is art that has a story from the creator and also from the people who are collecting it, right? We've seen, not just only globally, but also even within the Philippines, that what you would call the art that painstakingly created is still the most sought after art. Artists like Botong Francisco still stand out. Artists like Anita Magsaysayho still stand out. Of course, there's the other side of new coming artists who, of course, they are selling 5 million, as you said, and they are below 35, but that's just because somebody paid the same amount of money in Christie's Hong Kong, and that's being reflected here, right? But will that be the future of that artist? I don't think so, right? So going back to the creative process is that with any new innovation or with any new disruption, as somebody who's in a certain industry, the best thing is to be able to learn what can I take of this new disruption to help me take on the next wave that is coming, right? So if ChatGPT has been able to give answers to any question as an artist, maybe your creative process needs to begin at ChatGPT, which is you give ChatGPT an overview of this is what I have been doing to create my art. What do you think I need to do different to create my next series of artworks? And ChatGPT will tell you. And that is a new innovative thinking. ChatGPT will not sit down and work on that canvas. They'll just tell you, right? Whereas before maybe you were looking at inspiration from something that you saw on the streets or something, ChatGPT will tell you why not think of find innovation from something different. So it's up to you as the artist to take this new form of communication or new form of input-output for you to be able to move forward. Because ChatGPT will never in itself, a machine does not have the ability to create from a human perspective, right? So a machine will always create something that's a machine, right? And what we have seen is that all these art AI generated things are just seeming to be fads, right? They're not catching up. I mean, I've never heard anybody else going after AI generated art. Anybody who's going after digital art today, it's not as excited as before. But if you go to the auction house, a Leonardo da Vinci is still a Leonardo da Vinci, right? A Rembrandt is still a Rembrandt, right? Claude Monet is still a Claude Monet. And so that's the same thing. So so if Claude Monet was alive today and he was to create his next body of work, if he asked ChatGPT questions, I'm sure he'd create an amazing new body of work based on the output that ChatGPT would provide him. So I think for me, that's how I would look at, as a creative or somebody in the creative space, what would I get out of all this new AI or technology solutions that are coming up, rather than fighting them, rather than saying, oh, this is not good. That's how I would see it.
Thank you. Sir, so billionaires already exist in this planet, maybe because they have taken advantage of certain trends at sila yung nauna and they've made money out of it. Yes. And also, GMO already exists. Whether you choose to eat organic or plant your own food, it already exists. So, meron at meron kakain nun. Now, my point of view is from a starving Filipino artist na chasing after projects and sales to pay for my bills and to sustain my practice. So while all the billionaires are making their profits, while the GMO manufacturers are poisoning who they can according to the markets that they are able to penetrate, as a Filipino artist, sir, matigas ulo ko eh. I will always be resilient to, I will not do AI because I know of some artists who already do AI with matching certificate of authenticity that doesn't state there that the app is used in the artwork and it's printed and it's framed and it's sent to unsuspecting buyers na sinasabi, this is art actually, tas nagpapalakpakan sila sa Facebook, nagkakalat sila ng misinformation. So, kung whatever is happening in the bigger world, I know, I am aware of all these issues that are happening, but also my focus is how do I make my pieces, how do I make my art have an impact in the Philippine scene? How do I, paano mapansin ng collectors or buyers as a cultural worker? Paano yung mga artists na kilala ko, magkakaroon din sila ng sales, ganyan. So parang may disconnect. So if I waste so much energy thinking about yung ginagawa ng iba, at yung kinakain ng iba, at kung paano yung mayaman ng iba, mawawalan ako ng oras mag-produce ng talagang ginagawa ko, di ba? So parang I guess, for Filipino artists, na sentro naman sa, natin, sa community natin na to, we make do with what we have. Kung makabenta, very good. Kung 35 years old ako na I earn 5 million pesos for my artwork, I'm sure it will go to my family. Brothers and sisters all have cars. Bibilan ko lahat ng lupa. Yung mga ganyan. So, yung concerns ko po na micro, syempre, even if I am aware of everything that's happening elsewhere in the world, my focus is still, how do I make art that makes an impact on the scene, that pleases myself, that makes me happy, and also feeds my family, pays the bills. So yun lang, sir, yung yung takeaway ko from from all the issues.
So good afternoon. As you already have mentioned about, I have some major takeaways from everyone who have spoken earlier. So from Madam and the good gentleman over there, they've mentioned the pros of technology. Technology poses disadvantages to us, of course. Technology, the use of internet, is subject to human conditions, subject to age, subject to years that in which we were born. So subject to generation. So for other people, internet technology is just there, but for us, new generations, internet is part of our foundation. It is where we were born to. So technology helps us to traverse these intricacies that life poses. It helps us to access information that we need instantly. That's like Madam said, technology, internet poses speed and reliability for much speed it comes to what we access when we produce stuff. So in this case, since you already have mentioned earlier the stuff about GMOs, of course, genetically modified organisms, these are healthy stuff based on the Department of Food and Agriculture, or based on the health departments here in the Philippines, of course, in other countries as well. So, however, it poses questions when it comes to the nature, when it comes to biodiversity, that GMOs, of course, their science modifies our organisms. If it has effects when it comes to biodiversity. It affects which leads to extinction of organisms, of these animals that we have, of the species. So now onto my next point. It comes to technology, AI, and art. So art is subject to human condition. Art is where we express our experiences, right? I think all artists here can agree to me. Of course, me as myself as a writer can, of course, attest to that. So art is where we express our emotions. Art is where we convey our imagination, our creativity, and that is something that the technology don't have. AI, artificial intelligence, only creates artificial art. Well, for me, it creates mimicry art because it doesn't understand what we want really. We just encode prompts, but we do not. But it isn't able to really grasp what we want, what we really want for it to create, because the art that AI creates is only based on the data sets uploaded on the internet. It is based on what we have on the internet, of course. You can search, we can have the Mona Lisa, Fernando Mozol's masterpieces, among others. And those arts that the artificial intelligence creates are based on those. As per my experience, like a man on the moon, and it creates like a photo of the moon and a graphic of a man on the moon. That's what AI creates. It isn't really art that poses this problem. However, it comes to the responsibility of the human beings on how we use this technology. So me, as a language major, as a linguistics major, so ChatGPT, of course, we type into prompts. We submit prompts, and then the ChatGPT has this, let's say, produces this text. And it is robot. And as for me, as a linguistics major, as a language major, it is my part to make it more humanized. It is my part to make it more human-sounding and not robot. It is my part to make it connect to people, to connect to all of you here. So thus, as artists, it is our work to create the art that must convey emotions, that must convey messages, and must connect to the people. And that is something that artificial intelligence cannot create and cannot mimic from the human experience, from the human prowess. And of course, to the next point that the lady in black there has mentioned, earlier we have mentioned about the monopoly of art. So the question really poses here, from the thing that I got from her, is that two questions. Is art for monopoly, for commodity, or is art for your human experience, for you to express what is in your mind, or for you to express your experiences? That's it. Thank you.
Hello. Ayan. Hello. May question actually ako sa'yo. And I've been wanting to ask this question since nung nasa Iloilo pa tayo. Pero eto pa, for my intro, internet, good and bad, pros and cons. Of course, there's good and pros naman nun is for communication, easier access to everything. We could do anything with just one click, right? With just one search. The negative side on that, kasi since it's very accessible, there are many people na they abuse it, diba? Kaya nga may deep web, and in deep web, doon maraming nangyayari na hindi natin alam. Pwede doon bumili ng kung ano-ano, like weapons and drugs and stuff. Pero as art per se, the good thing is that, especially for those na upcoming artists, mga nagsisimula pa lang, naghahanap ng inspiration, doon pupunta sa internet. May mga iba naman for the mga veterans sa artist, doon, using the internet, parang mas mapapalawak yung kanilang mga pangalan. Kagaya ng sinabi niyo po, yung kay Papa na halos yung mga iba hindi pa kilala si Papa, si Antipas Delotavo. And I remember one kwento ni Papa na nung nalaman yung pangalan ni Papa, tinanong na, ay, buhay pa ba siya? O, diba? Hindi pa nila alam na buhay pa pala siya. O, diba? Through internet, malalaman din natin yon. With just, kung gusto ko malaman tungkol sa inyo, I can just search it. Diba? Tence Ruiz or like that. Pero the negative, the cons for that is masyado naman naabuso yung mga sa internet. Minsan yung mga, like the AI, with just couple of words, we can just create another art na sabihin natin, like what he said, Man on the Moon, may lalabas na, and tapos na tayo, one day na yon na in traditional form, minsan ilang hours pa yung maghahanap tayo, gagawa pa tayo ng concept, diba? Gaano katagal pa yon if we're just gonna create woodwork, gaano katagal din yon. Tapos naalala ko, another kwento, yung mga students na parang para sa akin na naabuso rin yung internet in a way na kasi since may page si Papa and kilalang kilala yung Intak sa Puso, there are students who are just messaging Papa na, Sir, can you please explain what's the meaning of this? O diba? Na parang para sa kanya. At parang din, in my opinion, parang nakakabastos din. Kasi I just created this art and for you, ang job mo lang is to understand, to digest this art. Diba? Saka, iba-iba naman tayong opinion, right? Meron siya sariling opinion, meron din kayong opinion. At minsan, sabi niya ni Papa to na mas maganda pa nga opinion nyo kaysa sa akin. O, diba? Pero here's my question. What if I integrate the AI or the technology in my art? Kasi here's the thing. I've been creating or trying to create this art na the traditional, yung mag-drawing ako and such. Pero I'm using the augmented reality. Yung augmented reality, yung parang when using the phone, when you scan the image, may mangyayari na parang, kunyari may video or something na mangyayari. So, my question is, if I do that, am I in the AI world or in the traditional world? Kasi since I'm using the technology, I'm not that fully traditional painting lang. Meron akong halong tech side, yung augmented reality na nga. So, ano ba, sa tingin nyo po, am I in the AI world or in the traditional? Kasi parang, if I'm in the between, parang ang hirap, is that okay then? Or is it parang justifiable na mixed media per se pa rin yun? Ayun po.
At least 25 years, considered myself a very skilled surfer on a dirty Calcutta surf. So I try to stay above the water. I don't want to drown. But yes, I have to avoid all of the junk that goes along with surfing. I will have to apologize that this was not so pleasant because I wanted to bother you really. You did not come to just merely be entertained by the chromatic abilities of Mr. Jose Tence Ruiz. No, you have come to be badgered by my persistently aspergerial self that always also cannot rest with these questions. But we thank everybody who has participated because, again, I think that's the whole idea of art. It is to stir up the discourse. It is, a friend once said, man, I used to be an editorial cartoonist in a newspaper. And he said, there are no more paper newspapers. And I said, yeah, so I make memes. I do make memes. I actually also try to apply my creativity to birthday greetings. If some of you have received a birthday greeting from me, I do it in such a mundane way. But I said, we all can live with enhanced creativity, and that's our creative obligation. where we will end up if you become like the assistant of the lady in the regime, the corporal who assists, what's the name of that? Kate Winslet, okay. If you end up being the corporal who becomes the dictator's personal guard who wants to massacre all her opponents, like, what's the name of the character of Jeffrey Rush who protected Elizabeth? Anyway, like that, no? That you may end up with all our skill, with all our creativity, we may end up being the protector of absolute power. We may. I do not know that. I live in fear. I also live in joy that I don't choose to be. Maybe that's the question I wanted to ask all of us. Is there a recourse for us who are not billionaires? Yes and no, and yet in the world of monopoly, in the world of inexorable choices, we do choose. I particularly appreciate your bravery that, you could have just listened and kept quiet, but no. You would share it with a room full of strangers and you do not know. Or maybe you have, the Filipinos are very diplomatic. Maybe you've learned that we have a kind of diplomacy about ourselves and that we are not like redneck debaters on any absolute topic. But thank you very much, because I think that's what I've been trying to do with my art. If you say, what the fuck is the connection with all of this with art? No, art is about thinking of the essential forces that drive us. Before it was physics, it was light, it was dreams, it was the sheer visceral emotion. I think for those of you who are internet surfers, you realize who are now the most popular internet artists: Mark Rothko, Cy Twombly, and Jean-Paul Basquiat. So we go, what the heck? But there's a viscerality, I think, about all of those three that touches even a non-art literate population of the world. And they like the most searched and the most Googled, no? So sabi ko, yeah, this is the dirty Calcutta surf with 30-foot waves and equal amount of debris flowing down on us. We swim about it. We hope we don't step on a rusty nail. When we do, yeah, we have to recuperate. But we constantly live making our choices. Where we will end up on both sides of the fence if we become a Walking Dead situation, well, hi, I used to see you in Ateneo and we used to debate these things, but now you have a knife and I have a shotgun, and we shall see. That may be a bit of inexorability, I don't know. Like I said, 1969, Kubrick proposed what seemed to be a funny thing, that the AI could take over the spaceship. I disagree that AI is not going to learn to take over us. I don't think you watch The Matrix enough, but yeah, okay. But yes, but power doubles. I think we have to accept this. Power doubles, capital multiplies in quadratic ways. And that means ability, power, and scope. And we are all in that. Where our children will study, what we will eat, how much cancer we will develop, how much fasting we will have to do to stay thin. Is it Dr. Eads or Gary Breca? Okay, Dr. Eads. Anybody for Dr. Eads? You don't know what I'm talking about. The two TikTok health, the two TikTok health advocates. No, it's either Gary Breca or Dr. Eads, both of whom call each other bullshit. So that's what happens in the world. We live in a beautiful, contentious wave of debris which we have to navigate. Thank you very much. I hope that I did not spoil your weekend too much. Enjoy your GMO pizza when you leave. I think the barbecue is organic. I do not know about the bananas. I think they come from agribusiness somewhere in the south. And Boots will take over for me.
Sige. Thank you, Bogie. Consistent with your art. It irritates, it provokes, it challenges us. So thank you for this very interesting conversation, and everybody who participated and who attended. We do have some snacks outside, but also we would like we prepared an evaluation, quick evaluation form for the ArtSpeak, if you don't mind spending a few minutes. And we'd like to thank Ateneo Fine Arts for co-presenting this ArtSpeak with us in line with the traditional art awards of the university. Tama ba? Oo. With featuring Tanglaw ng Lahi awardee 2023, Jose Tence Ruiz. Maraming salamat.